Hey, it's Michael from MoPOP, and I'm here with Becky from ACT Theater, and we're talking about civic participation. So I'd love to hear from you, Becky, why it's important for you to vote.
Well, I vote, first of all, because at one point women couldn't vote and worked very hard and for a long time to make sure that women could vote. And I think that if I couldn't vote, I would be really upset about that. So that's usually my response. If I ever, which is rare, find out that someone doesn't vote, I always say, what if you couldn't? And see if they might care a little bit more about that. But I care about what happens to me and my family and my community and how we take care of each other. And a lot of that happens through the political process. So that's why I vote.
So why is it important for people in the artistic community to be involved in the political process?
Well, first of all, I think you could insert any sector into that. Why is it important for anyone to be engaged? But I think that arts and artists are really critical to that conversation. I think that art is political, whether directly or indirectly, and that artists reflect our times. And as we look back over time, they really reflect our culture and what was happening. And a lot of that can be very political. And so I think those two things absolutely go together. I think artists are the innovators in our communities. I don't want to live in a city without artists. I think they help to make neighborhoods great. I think all sorts of neighborhoods. I think they make communities. They really define placemaking. And I think artists should be at the table for any sort of problem solving conversation. I hope that all of our public officials really value that artists in our communities can help to solve problems and should be considered very valuable to our community. They certainly are to me. That's all wonderful. We can also talk about jobs in the economy and what a booming business the arts business is. And I certainly hope that our public officials and decision makers recognize all that arts and arts organizations contribute to our economy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. Like, how is ACT Theater affected by government policies?
ACT and organizations and any individual organization is impacted. My first mind goes to funding and what funding is available. And we are fortunate to receive funding from the Office of Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture, for Culture, which is the King County entity that distributes funding to arts and culture, heritage, and public art. And then we have a state organization, Arts WA. And so because we are a not-for-profit, we're a business. We operate like a lot of businesses, but we don't operate to run a surplus. And that means we spend every dollar we make almost. We operate on very thin margins. And so we need that support in order to be the service organizations that we are to our communities. I have a sad statistic for you, and that is of the 50 states, Washington is 46th in state funding. And for a community that really seems to value, the creative sector and the creative people that are here and the organizations that are here, to be 46th out of 50 in state funding, we're right there between Texas and Virginia. I think that's disappointing. And I think that's something we need to work really hard on, to advocate for support of our creative sector with our public officials, because we know that when there is arts in schools, when there is art and creativity available to communities who need basic services, that it helps provide quality of life and it helps to provide that meaning for people to be able to express themselves. So we can talk all about the billions of dollars that the arts generate for our state and why we should be considered just as important as farming and technology and aerospace. But those are really core reasons. I think, our sector is just as important as any other, and we should have that financial support.
And is there anything that ACT is doing, this election season to get people energized or, participating in the process?
We are, first of all, also encouraging people to vote. It's not about supporting a particular party. It's about exercising, our right and to be part of the process. And it's so important to contribute to the direction we think things should be going for ourselves and our families and our communities. And we also have a couple of artistic programs that we're really excited about. We are hosting and sharing on our platforms with other theaters around the country. There's an upcoming show called Christina Wong for Public Office that will be available through Axe Channel on October 16th. True story, and written by and performed by Christina Wong. And then starting on October 13th, we have It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. And that is also a co-production with theaters all across the country. And both of those shows are about the political process. And I think people will be very encouraged to vote after seeing those.
That's great. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk today.
Thanks for having me.